Good evening. Welcome to Griswold Community Talkback. I'm Ed BERDICK, your host of tonight's program. I've been absent for a long time. I apologize. I had to take care of some business down in Florida, the state of Florida, Bonita Springs pretty much. But it's good to be back. A little red here from the sun, I guess. Nice weather we had. So I want to welcome everybody back that tuning in. I apologize for being off the air for some live programs. And I appreciate SEC TV for running some reruns if they've had. Want to start off, first of all, we're into March. Spring is here. You know, the actual time is tomorrow, I think. But basically, spring is sprung. So I want to let people know we're in for some cooler weather the next couple of days. We might even get a chance of snow Friday. So I think Friday is when I'll get my hair cut. But please call in. The number will be posted on the bottom of the screen. If you haven't been in, it's 860-440-3154. We pretty much cover local news in the Griswold area in Southeastern Connecticut, New London County, state of Connecticut, and national news as it impacts our people of this area. But let me bring you up to date. Basically, the big news today out of D.C. is basically the Supreme Court's hearing that case of allegations of suppression of news by the big social media companies, pretty much Facebook, etc., Twitter, when it was still Twitter prior to Elon Musk's ownership, is better known as X now. But I was listening to the oral arguments, and it seems like the questions kind of give a tell that probably the Supreme is going to let those social medias off the hook for kind of distorting and suppressing some of the news during the Trump re-election year. It's hard to believe in 2020, but basically they're going to probably spin it out that it wasn't coercion by the federal government, in particular the FBI, but that's my read of it right now. So maybe you guys might think differently of it. It seems like the Supreme is going to give them a pass for what they were alleged to have done during that time period, as far as the CDC being able to suppress opposing opinions on the COVID vaccinations or the potential of the mandates and stuff like that, and the effectiveness of that vaccine by Pfizer and Moderna, and also during Trump's campaign, taking down or suppressing some of his news that was favorable to him, or people that wanted to express support for the Trump candidacy during the re-election of Trump, or the Biden-Trump campaign season. So that's news from Washington. Locally, the first offshore wind farm of some significance, I know there's been some smaller projects, but the one by the Danish Ørsted company in Eversource off of Montauk Point, I think it's 35 miles east of Montauk. Pretty much they threw the switch on that late last week. So that's putting megawatts into the grid, I think 132 megawatts. And according to the press that I read in a day, it seems like that is enough if there's constant wind to supply energy for about 70,000 households. Now, next year, in that same article, they expressed that Revolution wind project between Rhode Island and Connecticut and Ørsted and Eversource and some other things. That's potential to provide energy for 350,000 households. So this one in South Fork is like 4 times bigger than the one that's in Rhode Island right now. I forget the name of that project there, off of Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, wherever it is. I don't know that much about it, but this one's pretty substantial, and it's good to have it on. A lot of money to put out there, so we gotta take the win, and I don't mean that as a pun when we get them. So also, I want to put out some local news for the people of Jewett City, Griswold, Volantown, that area. Earth Day is going to be the 27th. We're going to, in April, and we're going to try to do our annual cleanup. I think for Griswold it's the 6th annual cleanup. So get more on that to follow in the next couple of programs, but I want to just put it out there so people can be aware that on that Saturday, if you give the information to the town of Griswold and the people that are working at and coordinating, we'll be able to pick up some debris or appliances, whatever you can't get to the transfer station because physically you're not able to because of age or disability, or you don't have a pickup truck or vehicle to get it over there. We will have Tiger teams that will get your name and address ahead of time. We'll schedule a pickup and we'll get it over there. Mattresses, furniture, TVs, appliances, you name it. You'd be surprised at stuff that we haul out there on that day. So that's pretty much the town of Griswold, including the borough of Jewett City, which is part of the town. So more on that. I want to give a shout out for all the people that make that happen. In particular, part of that cleanup is we have volunteer groups and people that take a road or a street and they pick up all the garbage along the side of that road or streets that they sign up for. And that's been a big beneficial, it has a beneficial effect for the aesthetics of our town and borough. So usually the town and the borough officials are supportive of that. So stay tuned, more on that to follow. If you have any questions, call in 860-440-3154. We're trying to sustain that initiative that started 6 years ago. Also, local news is tomorrow is Tuesday, so if there are any veterans in the town of Griswold, Lisbon, Volantown, Griswold, in that area, the veterans have their coffee house from 8:30 to 11 at the senior center. I think it's 220 Taylor Hill Road in Griswold there. So again, that's Tuesdays, every Tuesday pretty much. And then Thursday, the Plainfield, the Veterans Coffee House, Plainfield, Connecticut, they have one in 482 Norwich Road at their senior center in Plainfield, and that's well attended. And this Thursday, I think from 5:30 to 7, they're having a spaghetti dinner for veterans and some guests up there at the senior center well in Plainfield. So spaghetti dinner. So they're going to be busy this coming Thursday for the morning coffee house and then that spaghetti dinner for veterans there. And there's no charge for the veterans on that spaghetti dinner. And we welcome all veterans. You don't have to be from Griswold or Plainfield to attend this. It's open to all veterans or active duty members, and not just the Guard members too, or Air National Guard or Reserve members. Any active duty or veteran, former service member, or including all the 6 services. And I can name them if you need to, including the Space Force, Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You probably left out some people there too, but it includes quite a lot there. National Guard members, like I mentioned. In Connecticut, it's a while out, but I want to put a heads up. We're going to have the Memorial Day Parade. That's, I think, the 27th of Memorial Day this year is going to be on the 27th. Let me just put that. I don't want to screw the dates on that because it's usually on a Monday when they have that. So let me get my calendar here. May. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be 27th of May, Memorial Day, at 9 o'clock in Fanning Park is where it kicks off. More to follow in the next couple of programs, but I'm trying to get that out because we have a parade right after that Fanning Park ceremony, and maybe I'll spend some time on it. That ceremony usually lasts about 40 minutes. We have a keynote speaker. We have, the clergy, the benediction, some patriotic songs by some female vocalists. We have a band there, taps. We have the honor, the roll call for the deceased veterans of the previous year. That's pretty important. And we then commence the formation after that ceremony for the parade that goes down on Main Street, southerly direction toward Lisbon. Usually have the Little League, high school, Friends of Patchogue Forest, the Veterans Coffee House, people and members, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, quite a few other, the veterans themselves, municipal leaders, format, the fire departments from Griswold, Volantown, Lisbon, the borough of Jewett City. So it's quite a thing, and we go to the bridge over the Quinnebog, and we have a water display there to honor the maritime, the Navy, fallen service members of the past, and then we circle back and go back to Fanning Park and disperse there. And then 1 o'clock, there's a Patchogue, at the Patchogue Cemetery, there's another ceremony for Memorial Day ceremony. We have speakers there, patriotic songs, the clergy, the band there too. So we've got two events, one at 9 o'clock and followed by parade, and then we have the Patchogue ceremony for Memorial Day out there in the cemetery at Patchogue on Volantown Road. So more on that to follow once we get the agenda lined up, who's going to be the keynote speaker, participants. I'll bring that to this program as well. If you have any questions, you can call me at this program or at my home number. I'm in the phone book. And usually the VFW, the American Legion Post 15, and the Eastern Connecticut, the Veterans Coffee House of Eastern Connecticut, kind of planning to make this thing successful this year if we can. So more on that to follow. Okay, what I want to touch now is usually this time of year we kick off the March Madness for basketball fans out there. And because in the state of Connecticut, our men's team and women's team tend to be pretty dominant in that sport, I want to announce that UConn did make the NCAA. And in the Big East, we only had 3 teams from the Big East that were invited to participate in the March Madness NCAA bracket tournament, and that was UConn, and my understanding, Creighton and Marquette. I hope I'm right there. Providence College did not get invited, unfortunately. It's a strong team too. But usually the Big East, you figure there's some strong teams there, and only 3 made it. It seems like a disservice to the Big East, but that's just my commentary. I'm not a big college basketball expert. I'm just giving you my take on it. So for UConn fans, it's good news. I'm an alumni of UConn up at Storrs, so I just wanted to put that out. And we will follow that through the month of March, pretty sure. There's a lot of dedicated female and male, and probably in some future we'll probably have another mixed gender there participating in these type of sports, the way things are going. But right now it's male and female as far as the NCAA. As far as I don't want to see the integrity of the sports get distorted by some type of CRT, but it looks like it might go that way. Now, locally, I want to say that it's this time of the year. I think it starts from February to May 15th, where our qualifying income program for people that have fixed incomes or low incomes, they can apply for tax relief for the elderly and disabled. There's a state program, and there's a window, and it seems like every 2 years you got to qualify for that. So for those people that are in that program, and this year they have to submit the paperwork, we're in that window, and I'll bring that to your attention because I do it for some other people in our town to help them qualify for that property tax relief. So basically, it's you can get this from your tax assessor in your town, whether you're listening from Griswold, Voluntown, or any other town in the state of Connecticut. You can speak to your municipal agent if you're a senior and you work through your senior center. They'll be somewhat familiar with it. But you can also talk to your tax assessor, assistant assessors, and ask for the application. It's a form pretty much, and maybe I'll spend some time on it because it's been a while, but it's an application. It's pretty, you might have to submit some evidence to substantiate your income level. Usually your tax returns will do that. But this also applies to veterans too. So there's additional veterans exemption for income qualifying applicants for this program too. It's the maximum for single applicants will be $38,100, and the maximum for married applicants will be $46,400. VA, if you're 100% VA determined disabled veterans, will continue to use the $18,000 for single applicants and $21,000 for married applicants. So more on this, and next week maybe I'll bring in the application and go through it. I'm just trying to look at I have some old data here. The numbers keep getting adjusted up for inflation over the years, so I don't want to give this numbers out because it's based on the 2022 year. So I'll bring you a more current application and income and grant information for tax year 2023 and 2024. So more on that to follow. Also, I want to put out, there's been a lot of, everybody realizes, maybe it's because I haven't been on a while, but maybe we should bring you up to date is pretty much I focus on politics here too. And the big political story is the upcoming presidential elections. And there's down ballot races, as we know, for senator and all the representatives. The 5 House seats in Connecticut are up for, every 3 years they come up. Excuse me, I better take something before I fall asleep here. But so in Arte, we got, Courtney's our Democratic incumbent for the 2nd Congressional District. So whoever the Republican candidate that gets endorsed and whoever else is, usually there's a few other candidates that petition on to get on the ballot in the past. So Green Party candidates, Working Party candidates, and Republicans. So we'll more on that, and we'll try to bring in some guests or some of the candidates that are running, especially the challengers, because they seem to have to do more to overcome the advantage of the incumbent candidate for the races. But also, we have the main thing is the presidential race between President Biden, is the incumbent. It looks like he's both. He has a party nomination as far as the primary has been going. It seems he haven't captured enough delegates, and so is Donald J. Trump, candidate for the Republican side of the ledger there. He seems to have captured his threshold number for delegates. So when the convention convenes, I think theirs convenes in the summer, late in the summer, he should be able to get over the threshold there. So it looks like a Biden Trump rematch. I think it's his son. I'm not really tired. And the rhetoric is starting to heat up, even though Biden, usually the incumbent has a lot of advantage, but the polling seems to be that Biden is not doing well in the polls. And usually, the pollsters, they're a dedicated type of group, and they seem to know what the magic thresholds are. And for those people that follow it, and I'm not an expert in reading those tea leaves from all these polling groups, there's 538, there's Trafalgar, there's Investors Business Daily. There's a whole slew of them. But there seems to be a consensus among those tea leaf readers that the incumbent president, Joe Biden, is not registering well in these surveys or these polls leading up this time in the campaign season. So he's perceived to be vulnerable. Now, Trump seems to be polling better than he did previously. So it looks like my thing is going to be a close race. It's going to come down, unless there's some big surprises on candidates being reshuffled at the convention. It seems like it's probably going to narrow, and it's going to come down to these key states. These in the past, it's been states like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Arizona, maybe Pennsylvania, Georgia. I'm probably leaving out one or two other ones here, but basically it's these states that are in play that determine the outcome of the presidential race, because don't forget, it's electoral. It's not by popular vote. The popular vote internal to each state is critical to determining mostly who gets, who wins that state. Now, some states, I think it's Nebraska and Maine, they split. They go by congressional districts. You have to win that district by the popular vote to get that delegate, okay? I think so. There's only 2 states that do it that way. Now, it could change, but I think it's Nebraska and Maine, because I remember last year Trump got 1 delegate, I think, out of Maine, if I'm correct, because of the congressional district went for him. And I forget how it broke for Nebraska. But basically, New England is pretty much blue country, for lack of a better term. So I don't anticipate if one of the New England states or 2 go to Trump, I think it's Katie bar the door. Trump's probably going to win because they're so blue. I'm just trying to be frank here. But I perceive it'll be a close race. It'll be a nail biter. Maybe not by ballots cast or harvested or whatever, but by electoral count. It's going to come down to, these key purple states pretty much, or, like New York, California. They're pretty much in the Democratic camp from the get-go, even though a lot of New York, area-wise, is very conservative. At the urban centers, New York City, some of those votes, 92% for whoever has a D next to their name, they seem to get. Now, in some states, this is just from press accounts now, there's actually more votes than inhabitants of the states in some places in Michigan. I don't know how that happens, but, that's on record. There was more votes cast in the last presidential election than actually eligible voters in some of those districts up there. So that ballot harvesting is a powerful tool, and it's probably going to be perpetuated in the race going forward in the states that have it. You got early voting now, and then you have, in some states, I'm not trying to cast an aspersion here that things are illegal, because in some of these states, that early voting and that ballot harvesting is actually legal. In other words, for people that don't know what ballot harvesting means, or if you need a quick and dirty explanation for it, because I'm kind of against it. I think it opens up questionable integrity about the ballots that are pretty much harvested that way or presented that way to the municipalities where they're eventually deposited. But basically, if it's legal in your state to harvest ballots, basically you're actually having someone else standing over someone else that's supposedly casting a ballot, and then they're legally allowed to transmit that ballot to where it's supposed to be counted. You know what I mean? So let's use an analogy, okay? You you're going to deposit some money into the bank. Someone's standing over you, setting this up, but they actually take that money or whatever, checks or whatever, and they're going to be the ones that, deposit. That's what's happened in some of the ballots in some of the states. In quite a few states, almost half the states, maybe slightly more, that's allowed legally to happen. Now, in some states, it's even more. You have that complemented with early voting. In some states, it's like 45 days, 30 days before the presidential election day. I think this year is November 5th. You can actually early vote for the candidate. So usually the Republicans are, really haven't exploited the early voting. And so basically what you can have good turnout from the Republican side on election day, but a lot of ballots have already been cast on the Democrats. They harvest them, they got them, the early voting. There are people that voted, they're registered Democrats, they tend to vote. So, and so I think this year with the change at the RNC, which is the Republican National Committee, basically, though people don't follow politics, is McDaniel was a female, kind of related to a former senator, existing senator from Utah now, former governor of Massachusetts, Romney. She's related, she's a Romney pretty much, but she's married. So she married outside her family, which is a good sign because years ago people would marry within their family and nothing was said about it. It caused some other problems, but basically she's resigned and there's a new leader in there, and the co-chair is Laura Trump, and with the last name of Trump, you can see she's going to try to oversee that thing to make sure that that RNC organization is either trying to raise money to support the presidential race, and hopefully some of these senatorial races for Republican candidates, in which in the past was doubtful where some of that money was going. But I digress a little bit on the political side, but I wanted to point that out. It's heating up. So some commentators have it's never been this early where the two candidates have been resolved both on the Democratic side and the Republican side for the presidential race. Usually these primary battles continue further into the season, and sometimes they go right to the convention before it's decided who's going to be that endorsed candidate. Again, there's going to be a caveat. There's cracks in the system because there seems to be, because of the Palestinian, or I call it Hamas and the Israeli war. I don't call it a Palestinian war at all because basically it's the radical element of a population in the Gaza Strip, which is pretty Hamas and some other proxies for the Iranian state. They don't really want a two-state solution. They want to destroy Israel. And now, I don't have a dog in a fight. I'm not really anti-Israel. I'm not really pro-Israel. I'm not anti-Palestine, anti-two-state solution. I'm just saying, from what I've read from pretty much some pretty decent books by long-term diplomats in the area, Dennis Ross and some other commentators on the Middle East, it seems there's been plenty of rapprochement through the PLO. Now, PLO is not really a factor anymore, a party or an entity to negotiate with, but pretty much the successors to the leadership of the Palestine or ethnic group, they really don't want to coexist. They don't want Israel to coexist, with them. So that two-state solution, even though it's been proposed by successor administrations in the United States and a few other countries as well, it hasn't really gone anywhere because since the Carter administration has kind of never been seriously pursued or in good faith by one side of the negotiations. So that's my commentary on it. I think war's going to settle the issue from one side or the other. Either one side will be forced for a two-state solution, or there will be no two-state solution, and they'll be part of, there'll be a minority representation into another country, maybe, or they'll be dispersed into multiple countries like Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, that Arab population that if they don't accept a two-state solution and abide by it, they will be crushed by our proxy in the Middle East, which is Israel, in my opinion. I'm just giving you my take on why Israel has been able to sustain itself over since 1948. I think it's because of the U.S. support. Now, I'm not saying we're the only ones as a sovereign that support the state of Israel. I'm talking about financially. We pretty much have a memorandum of understanding where we're going to support Israel at the minimum of $3 billion a year. And now they have supplemental funding. Thank you very much. They have supplemental funding because of this latest outbreak, this war, that Hamas is, October 7th is the key date for those people that woke up recently of 2023 when they massacred by a well-coordinated attack into Israel and killed pretty much 2,000 people within a couple of hours there and took many hostages. Now, my own opinion is I think Israel, whether we're going to pay lip service to them or not on this, be less coercive or less devastating to the civilian population. But the reason Hamas is surviving is because they're immersed with the civilian population in the last area they are, And so they don't want to separate the civilian population from their militia or their active duty or their fighters. They want to stay somewhat protected. If they get separated, Israel's going to destroy them, and they know that. And so I think there's going to be more civilian casualties if Israel has its way because they want to destroy Hamas. It was a red line that was crossed, and if I was the leader of my country that had been devastated, like Israel was on October 7th, I see that as a 9/11 line. I said, hey, you know what? You crossed a significant line here. I hate to say it. If you don't separate your civilians, either by choice or other means, if they don't leave, there's going to be a lot of civilian casualties because we intend to terminate your opposition as a fighting group, as a fighting organization. So that's my take. I'm not saying that's how it's going to resolve. It's if I was the leader of a country and I had the responsibility to protect my sovereign entity and that threat was posed, whether it was by proxy, and I realized, hey, I don't have the means by myself to take out the puppet master, which is the state of Iran. I'm going to take out the puppets. I'm going to do what I'm capable of doing as a leader to eliminate the proximate cause. And you can call it retribution, you can call it revenge, you can call it reprisal, you can call it, hey, you declared war on us, we're going to war with you, we're going to terminate it on conditions favorable to us as a nation state. So enough on that. Now, President Netanyahu, I understand there's criticism of him. He's been there a long time. We use the word democracy in quotes, they do have elections. He's long in the tooth by a lot of observers. He's been there too long. Anybody in power too long, you take on attributes of, entitlement. We see it in our state here in Connecticut. We see it at the national level. Some of these senators, they're not even competent. They would be, in Connecticut we have a process where you can get conservatorship. Some of these senators that are sitting senators from some states, and I'll name a few of them. We had one for a while. It seems like the senator from Pennsylvania has actually improved over the last couple of months. But at one time, he was a candidate for conservatorship. Let's face it. And so was McConnell. And the ones out in California. Come on. And some, they're not incompetent enough, but they don't. The elevator doesn't go to the top floor. You know what I mean? There's some other issues. Okay, I think it's a lack of an informed and competent education, but they got elected. They're entitled to serve their constituents, and I don't begrudge them that. I'm just saying, thank God there's more than them in the body that they are composed of, whether it's the House of Representatives or the Senate chamber. Now we have 100 senators. We have about 435 House of Representatives, but it's a good thing because all of them probably, and I don't think you should have to have a full deck to play cards. I realize that, but you got to have a certain number of them in your hand and be able to play them. Now, that's well said, but here's where I think they would make an argument to me, and it would be a sound argument. Ed, why are you complaining about my competence? The number of cards I have in play. Look at the President of the United States. He's playing with less cards than I am. And they're right. So in a way, we've accepted, and the people that can exercise the 25th Amendment, they've accepted by their inaction or actions. They're really saying, hey, you know what? It's not an issue. The guy, the way he's operating, our President of the United States, his behavior, his conduct, his manifestations of his ability, they don't rise to the threshold that it should be reviewed. It should be determined by the body under the 25th Amendment to make a decision and go on record. So in a way, these people would make a sound argument. Their argument should be, you know what? Stop criticizing me for my cognitive gaps. Look at the President of the United States. I'm functioning material, standard deviations above that. So if he passed muster, I passed muster. And if you're locked into that logic, and that's the logic that I would be locked on if allegations were cast at me for not rising to the level cognitively to perform my jobs as a senator from the state of Pennsylvania, from the state of California, the state of New Jersey. Now, in New Jersey, that's more like a criminal allegation. It's not really it takes some cognitive ability to put gold bullion in your sewn into your outer jacket as a suit, part of your apparel. So that's a different set of issues there. But maybe I rattled that chain a little bit too much. But I think you understand what I'm saying. I mean, if we can accept Pontus, the President of the United States, operating or not operating at the level that most people would, start having some questions here. They say, Dad, I don't want you driving a car. You don't have the cognitive reaction time or ability to be out on the road. And if you don't perceive it that's harmful to you or you're willing to accept the risk, it's harmful to other operators on the road or operators or passengers in your vehicle or passengers in other vehicles. Why extend that analogy and metaphor to the President of the United States? Just because Joe Biden thinks he's all right to run our country, he could be posing a harm to our country, to its constituents, to its inhabitants. And that's why the 25th Amendment is there. It's not the president's call, the 25th Amendment. He has no role in that. He is the target of it, you know what I mean? Or she, if it's a woman candidate or a president or an office holder. That 25th Amendment, it's up to other constitutional office holders to look at that and say, you know what? Boom. It's been triggered or not. And I think it's malfeasance that they haven't triggered it, especially with the nuclear machinery that is at the disposal of the President of the United States. Given that we're facing conflicts and we have allies that are involved in active Connecticut warfare in the Ukraine, in the Middle East, Israel. We have threats in the Red Sea, on maritime shipping. We have terrorists out there. We have the border problem, and it is more than a problem. It's a catastrophe. We have unlimited immigration into our country. No forms. You walk across the border, you get flown in at the cost of American taxpayers from places like Haiti, Venezuela, and other places. They're flying them in to LaGuardia, to Maine, Chicago, O'Hara, Midway, Miami, Texas, you name it. These flights are happening every day. California. And basically, they know what they're doing. These are Democratic operatives. They're in power. They want to shore up the diminution of the populations in blue states like California, New York, Rhode Island, Maine, Illinois. Because if they get more House of Representatives, they have more political power. Let's say you can gerrymander or game the immigration so you can get migrants, then count it in the census. Instead of Rhode Island losing a House representative like they should have last time around, they keep it or they gain another one. Same thing in California. Instead of losing 5 House representatives because of migration out of California to places like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, or Arizona, they gain or maintain that by all those migrants coming in. Illegally sanctioned as legal. They're paroled in. The President of the United States, through the executive authority he has, is paroling these people in. Not only that, paying for it and using money funding NGOs, non-government organizations, to facilitate, cater, chaperone, and guide these people into these settlement areas where they're being vectored into. And by the way, there's collateral damage to a lot of people along the way, to young women, to young children, to disabled. The criminal elements are coming in. You're actually funding a criminal organization that has ties to the Chinese through the fentanyl precursor manufacture and distribution of powerful, addictive, and deadly compounds that are sprinkled on and dispersed to other drugs and pharmaceuticals, killing people over, some people say, over 100 to 300 a day. Over 100 more people, we're losing more people every year than we lost at the height. In the Vietnam War, over 55. There's 100,000 people dying from drug overdoses every year in our country. And they're predominantly within that age is young to middle-aged, okay? Or, we're losing a lot of young people. And it's taxing our population. It's hurting families. When someone dies, a young person dies, they were a member of a family. So look at all the families that have been impacted adversely over the past years because of fentanyl and other hard drugs that are very deadly. And it costing our system a lot of money through SSI, emergency response teams throughout our localities, our fire departments, our ambulance crews, maintaining, we're trying to revive people that are overdosed on fentanyl or other compounds. Sometimes we have the same people being revived multiple times. You're wearing these volunteer services out. Not everyone that's in the ambulance crew is a full-time paid person. Usually in your cities they are. The tax base is there. But a lot of small towns out west, rural areas, there's a lot of volunteer fire people that have to respond to these things. And they get burnt out, especially if they're going to the same 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid that this is the third time they use Narcan to revive him or her, and they get jaded. And their spouse says, hey, you know what? This is the third time this week you've been out. What about our kids? What about me? What about your spouse? What about work? Enough is enough. And then you're going to have professionalized, and we're facing the same thing in our town. A lot of these rural towns, Griswold included, we have to manage that. We need the volunteers. They're getting burnt out either through the young people leaving the community, people retiring, getting older. We need to make that volunteer option a reasonable one, an attractive one, where we can say, you know what, it does take time, but it's manageable. It's not good. You're not going to be out there every night for 3 or 4 hours, So I want to make a pitch now. I got a few minutes left. If you're listening and you serve in the town of Connecticut and you want to get involved, believe me, look into it, either as a volunteer for your municipal office or run for office, or get involved in the boards and the committees, school boards. You got your planning and zoning, you got your wetlands. There's many, public safety, get involved with the fire department, ambulance things, other organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the town, those institutions, your libraries, your pantries. There's I'm leaving out a lot, believe me, but helping out with the seniors, helping out the elderly, the disabled. They're there, I know, volunteers really, without volunteers, would be in a world of hurt. A lot of, okay, I got a few minutes left, so I'm going to set it up for some things here, but I want to touch on one thing that I didn't touch on that I should touch on. This royal family press thing with Kate Middleton and Prince William. It seems like they're not telling everything that, and maybe that's, in the UK is a little different than the United States. In the United States, we kind of, if you're a public official, it's fair game. The paparazzi or whatever, the press, they can probe, but in the UK, there's kind of like an informal understanding, or formal probably, with the royal house and the UK press, but it seems like that's going to come to a reevaluation a lot, because of the photo released by the royal house on Kate. I guess it was doctored for the last, and so there's speculation that she's was hospitalized for something that's probably more sensitive than the Windsor or the royal house, the Buckingham Palace wants to disseminate. But it seems like that lid's going to be torn off in the next couple of weeks. Now, other things I want to touch, because they're going to start impacting the state of Connecticut, is this Haitian crisis out of Port-au-Prince. Latest news was, the State Department can't even guarantee the safety of the Americans still remaining in the country of Haiti. I wouldn't even call it a country. It's a stateless. To me, it's no man's land right now in Port-au-Prince and other areas. But I understand there was some American citizens that got out, chartered plane, got in there outside, but they had to get there on their own accord. So it's like mini Afghanistan. We got Americans, American nationals that have to fend for themselves in a country that's not that far off the coast of Florida. And supposedly there's Haitians that are coming in, immigration, illegal migrants coming in, and at the expense of American taxpayers. And basically, for those people from Massachusetts, my heart goes out to you. It was a Haitian migrant that supposedly is alleged to have raped a handicapped young girl, I think age 14, Haitian origin, in the country as a migrant. Illegal. No, so these stories, we had one in Athens, Georgia, that was on the national news. These things are going to stop populating more and more, maybe not national media, because it seems like the media is in the tank, or I should say against anything that's beneficial to a challenger to the present Democratic incumbent president, Joe Biden. But it's going to start impacting local communities like it did in Athens, Georgia, like it did in Massachusetts, suburb of Boston. So my heart goes out to those families. I can't imagine, but if it did happen to me, I already know my character. I would not be one happy camper, and I'm not going to sit back and take it because some national elected official doesn't have the temerity or the personal courage, or maybe not even the personal awareness that what is happening to his country as a leader. But if I was a senator from Massachusetts, if I was a representative from Massachusetts, I would be on the damn horn. I would call the president and say, you know what, this has got to stop. It's your policies that inflicted this damage to this girl in Massachusetts and cost the life of a co-ed at the University of Georgia and Athens campus a few weeks back. It's your policies, President, that caused, the death of my daughter, the rape of my daughter, whatever. So, and let's call it like it is. Where's the courageous spokespeople that are sent by their constituents to our nation's capital to go on the record and say, you know what, it's time to reevaluate the administration's policy as far as immigration. Okay, until next week, this is Ed Burdick, Community Talkback. Have a good week. We'll see you next week at 5 o'clock.